Muhammad Ali for this epic moment in the Philippine Coliseum.
This is the ExtraTime.com Friday podcast, and on this day, October 1st, 1975, the Thrilla in Manila took place. It's a huge weekend in boxing this weekend as well, because Darren O'Neill is looking to win his first national title in 4 years, having just returned from retirement for this competition, having not really sparred for a couple of years. He won his first national title at adult grade 16 years ago. He's had a phenomenal career. He's an Olympian. He had nothing to prove, but he just wanted to come back. It's a huge weekend. He's fighting, I think, tomorrow night. You'll be able to watch that on TG Cahir. And if you want to know more about Darren O'Neill's story, I've put up a link on Twitter to a story written by Ronan Mullen of the Irish Examiner, who has been speaking to Darren. Now, what about us? What have we got coming up on the podcast? We've got Shane Supple on Stephen Kenny's squad selection for the games against Qatar and Azerbaijan. Will Keane is the only really left field selection there, but he has been scoring goals for Wigan. He scored 4 in 9 league games, but at League One level. So maybe there's a bit of a question mark about why he's included, having only done it at League One level recently. But Shane will address that and we'll get into that. We've also got Jess Gargan of Shelbourne, who'll talk about a must-win game against DLR Waves tomorrow, that's Saturday, in the SSE Women's National League. If Shelbourne are to have any chance of winning the league title, they have to win tomorrow. And even if they keep winning, there's not much they can do if Peamount keep winning. They'll win the title. Wexford, by the way, ahead of Shelbourne at the moment as well. So they're still very much in the mix. We'll also hear from former Connacht, Leinster and Montpellier out-half Mark McHugh, who's now the head coach at Lansdowne. He's going to talk to us about the United Rugby Championship and also the return of the Men's All-Ireland League. The women started last weekend. Let's start though with Stephen Kenny and why he has selected League One striker Will Keane for the upcoming matches.
Will has had a consistent run of games this year. He's probably having one of his best seasons, and we managed to see him, quite a bit of him. He links the play well. You know, he's playing as a second striker at Wigan. They were top of the league they got beaten by Sheffield Wednesday obviously on Tuesday night. I was at the game, and he leads the line quite well, and he's appreciating the players around him, good way to pass and good vision, and he can score headed goals, different types of goals. So he's having a good season so far. He's a good option for us, and we're looking forward to getting him in this week and working with him at close quarters. Obviously it's his first introduction into the Irish international team, so we're looking forward to seeing him.
Now, Ireland have scored late equalisers against Azerbaijan and Serbia of late. Stephen Kenny thinks that the timing of those goals is quite important and does say something about the development and evolution of his team.
We've shown a capacity in the last couple of games to equalise late, and we haven't had that. So it's important that we had that. I think the formulation of the team and in the summer, you can see the sort of connection out between the younger players, the more experienced players, and the team spirit is good, as we showed against Serbia. Serbia were very good against us, but we played a lot of good football in that match and got the late goal against Azerbaijan. So the ability to keep going, that level of persistence and perseverance and the capacity to score late goals, that's an important trait. And we've seen that in countries such as Wales, for example, who have scored a lot of late goals over the last few years. And we've noted that, like in very, very tight games, they've scored goals late. And it's an important characteristic of any team wants to be successful. It was good that in the last window that we did that, and we just need to, because we have taken the lead in games against Portugal and Serbia this year in qualifiers. So it is important. The ability to get late goals is an important trait, and one that we hadn't shown up into the last window. So it was important now to get them 2 late goals, that we need to continue in that vein.
It is the ExtraTime.com Friday podcast, and we're joined now by former Bohemians, Ipswich and St. Bridget's goalkeeper Shane Supple. Shane, how are you?
All good, Shane, yeah. Keeping well.
Good to hear from you. Before we get into tonight's fixtures and the games across the weekend in the SSE Electricity League Premier Division, and maybe more so the transfers that we heard about this week, because it was a big week for that. What about the Ireland squad announced yesterday? Probably not too many debating points, probably not much that you'd say, oh, I don't know about that. Maybe one surprise with the inclusion of Will Keane, who is currently at Wigan and obviously, like yourself, used to be at Ipswich.
Yeah, it's no surprise, I suppose, in terms of calling in a striker. It's been an area, obviously, we've lacked goals since Stephen Kenny's come in, so it's no surprise he's looking to unearth someone out there to bring in as well. The guys have done well in games without having any end product at times, so it's no surprise he's searching for, someone across the world that maybe has a grandparent that we're not sure of or that, and see, can we bring him? I think he played for England underage and that as well, so it'd be good to nick one from them.
That's right. It's revenge for Rice and Grealish. He played under 21 for England, but now he's ours. He is playing at League One. That's the negative point that people might bring up. But the positive of that is he is playing games, he is scoring goals. And if Bazunu has taught us anything, it's that you can be playing at what people perceive to be a lower level, but still be outstanding for Ireland.
Yeah, maybe it's slightly different for a goalkeeper. At times, obviously, Bazunu's at a very early stage in his development as well. And he's probably in as our number one with the national team a lot earlier than we probably had expected. But he's obviously performing really well when he has played for us, and obviously doing quite well at Portsmouth from what I've seen and heard. So Will's obviously a lot older, so and has had a lot of clubs, in his career so far. So yeah, listen, it'll be interesting to see how he slots in and fits in with the way Stephen wants to play and the group as well. It's worth a look to see can we get someone that can benefit and strengthen the squad.
He's certainly worth the punt, and he is scoring goals. And interestingly enough, it was put to Stephen Kenny in the press conference, well, what about Scully, who's also playing well? But he said, look, he's a different kind of player. Do you look to these two games coming up with a great level of optimism, or how are you looking at them, Shane? Obviously, it's a friendly against Qatar and a competitive game against Azerbaijan. And Azerbaijan, it's away from home, but he could really do with a win.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had performances without getting wins, I suppose, but at this stage, I think we're 15 games are we into Stephen's reign. We really need a win on the board, I think, and it would be massive, to get one at this stage. It's been a difficult enough year at times with some, scattering of positivity in there, but I think as everyone knows, it seems to be 50-50 in the country in the Stephen Kenny camp, and maybe who's for maybe more of the old ways and getting results in whatever way we can. So, but I'm optimistic in the way Stephen's trying to play the game, and about the talent coming through, and we need to be patient with them. There's a lot of young lads there that are still learning the game and developing, not playing week in, week out with their clubs, but they obviously love putting on an Irish shirt and playing for Stephen, which a lot of them did under 21s, and I would have done a lot of games for our sport on the under 21s, and Stephen took over, and it was really positive and exciting to see those lads coming through, and they probably got the chance a bit earlier maybe because of the lack of talent around and the direction Stephen wants to take things. So I'd be positive, but he does need to start getting a few results, and a bit more positivity and goals probably, and we need to stop conceding the silly sloppy goals that we have done as well. So I think if that happens, we get a win and we get a clean sheet or two, I think that would bode well, and for Stephen going forward.
He said something interesting in the press conference yesterday, that against Serbia and against Azerbaijan they equalised late, and that was a big boost, and that's something that gives him a bit of confidence. It's a really positive sign. Can you understand what he means by that?
Yeah, of course. You don't want to see your team, result or the game is going against them and they're down, that they just lie down and roll over. I think that's a positive for any manager, that there's always the fight there, and Irish teams would be renowned for that anyway down through the years. So it would have been a given with Irish teams, but it's obviously from Stephen's point of view, it's great that there is that fight in the lads when things are not going great, because you need that. Your luck will turn if you're doing the right things and are positive and are hanging in there and not throwing in the towel. So I can obviously see why he said that. But again, he's looking for positives to take out of things as much as possible. He is a very positive guy, and it is a big transition what's going on in Irish football, on and off the pitch. So it's going to take time, and it may take a bit longer than people would want or expect. But I think we have to back him and give him that chance. And if we go into a campaign, for the European Championships in 2024 and things are not starting well, then I think you reassess it then and make a call on it. But I think we have to give him that chance.
That's interesting that you put it like that. It shows fight, because I think very often, maybe as Irish football fans, we assume that fight means up and at him, long balls into the box, chase down the knockdowns, win the second ball. But fight is something you can have while playing good football, and that's the kind of football that Stephen Kenny is trying to implement. So it's interesting that that trait is still there, that fight is still there, that you'll never beat the Irish attitude is still there.
Yeah, definitely. I think with the way the game has evolved, and I think players are more informed and are more prepared than they ever have been in the past, going into games. They're technically a lot better, I would say, and maybe a lot better coached. But if you can add what we've always had as a nation, as in that fighting spirit to that, hopefully we'll get better results. We'll get big results that maybe we're not expected at times, against the likes of Portugal or the Dutch or whatever. And we will start beating the so-called lesser nations, but we have to be realistic as well, where we are at the moment, with, the amount of caps some of these young lads have.
From what you've seen, there is fight there.
Yeah, I absolutely think there is 100%. And it is, going to still take a bit of time, I think, for Stephen to really knit that team together to figure out the midfield. Is probably still a little bit of an issue for him. And if we do need to start scoring goals, and obviously that's why Will's been brought in to see if are goals maybe there. But again, with football, one goal goes in, not that the floodgates could open, but the confidence lifts and rises, and we could start getting a few more positive results. So hopefully that will be the case. He's been the most unlucky manager, I think, in the last year and a half since he's come in, with obviously the COVID situation and other things in the background that have gone on, and just unlucky, individual errors maybe at times on the pitch, and things not falling for us. So hopefully that will turn, and we will see what's gone on over the last 18 months or whatever, and the experience that those lads have gained will stand to them long term, please God.
Yeah. And just before we let go, just before we move on from the Ireland squad, Seamus Coleman isn't there. That was expected. Alan Brown isn't there. I think he's suspended. Are they big losses?
Yeah, Seamus is massive. Anytime you're going into a qualifier or that without Seamus there, it's massive, for what he brings, and off the pitch as well. He's a great leader, and a really good guy, and he will be sorely missed. Unfortunately, there's not too many like him these days around, so that's a massive loss for us.
Yep, it is indeed. Right, let's talk about the SSE Electricity League. Dundalk away to Finn Harps tonight at 8:00. I suppose the big news around Dundalk in the lead into this is the fact that Mikey Duffy is going to Derry. He's signed a 4-year deal with them. Now, we know Derry have the backing, so they can give these long contracts, but a 4-year deal in the League of Ireland is still fairly phenomenal. How big a loss is he going to be to Dundalk, combined with the loss of Patrick McElhenney?
Massive. Duffy's been probably one of the top 3 players in the league since he's come back into the league, I would say, and it's a massive loss for Dundalk that they're not able to keep him. I'm not surprised, obviously, with what's gone on this year and behind the scenes, what you hear, and the contract situation, in terms of some of the older players and what they're being offered. And from Duffy's side of things, he's probably looking at it and going, where are the opportunities for me maybe to win something going forward? And Derry look like a team on the up. Rory Higgins in there seems to be a great manager, and putting together a great team, coupled with the investment that they have coming now from their owners. So it's exciting times, looking from the outside in with what's happening with Derry. So, and he's obviously from up that neck of the woods as well. So I think it's a good move for him, the way they're going. But again, it's Dundalk's, mess that they've created there for themselves, that they haven't been able to hold on to these guys. And, the likes of Will Patching as well, you're hearing could be going to Derry as well. Obviously he's on loan this year with them, and they called him back. He's doing so well. So it's just crazy what's going on there with the talent they have, and the experience that they have. I know they've picked up a couple of results of late, but that they're even, down there where they are is unbelievable with the budget that they have.
Big Manchester City fan, Will Patching. We actually spoke to him last week on the show. McElhenney going, Duffy going, possibly more players going. Does that in some ways make them more dangerous for the rest of the season? In some ways, for Vinnie Perth, is that a good thing? Because you might have players who are there for a long time and they want to end on a high. They want to make sure that people will look back on their time at the club positively, which of course they should anyway because of the success they've already had. but they'll want to finish on a high, and they're still in the cup. Obviously, they'll want to, stay in the Premier Division. It looks like they can and will do that. But is that a factor? The fact that there's a couple of them leaving, is that something that Vinny can use for the rest of the season?
You'd like to think so. Obviously, they're professional footballers at the end of the day as well. You'd like to think that that's a given. No one wants to have a relegation on their CV. As you said, they're still in the cup semi-final against Pat. So, everyone wants a day out at the Aviva. So you'd imagine so. But looking at where they've come from this year in the position that they're in, you'd have to question maybe some of the players there, with the experience that they have they been given it all as well. But again, it's going to be a tricky one. Again, we're not privy to everything that's going on in behind the scenes there, but it seems to be a lot of instability there, this year in Dundalk.
Finn Harps host them tonight. I was going to say are a match for anyone at home, but they've been a match at times for anyone anywhere this season. So this is one that Dundalk really have to be careful with.
Yeah, I actually was at the game last week when Finn Harps played in Dalymount against Bows, and in fairness to Ollie, he had them organised. They came with a game plan. It probably worked out perfectly for them that night. They sat in with their two banks of four, and then, the two up front kind of dropped in, and at times, they were all in their own half defending, and they're dangerous on the break. They're dangerous from set pieces, and the longer the game goes on at 0-0, the better it suits Harps, it seems, especially away from home. So they are dangerous. Ollie's done an unbelievable job there this year. Like, probably more so than any other year. He's got a lot of experienced players up there, which is great. The likes of Barry McNamee and that, and Ryan Connolly in there, and it was great to see Sean Boyd back as well after his horrendous injury. So they have a lot of experience. Jared Doherty in goal, and it's great. Again, every year they're the favourites, one of the favourites to be down the bottom, but they've had a fantastic season, and it'd be great to see them stay up. Although from my time playing, I never really enjoyed travelling up to Ballybuffet. But yeah, no, they're dangerous, and they can, as you said, they can beat anyone on their day.
For Bulls, your old side, their way to Longford, they lost in Dundalk on Monday night. They'll be frustrated with that because they had the chances to equalise, and Wilson got a really good goal. This is one they have to win. The pressure's on because they need a big finish if they're to reach Europe through the league. I know they have the cup, but you don't want to be banking on that.
No, definitely not. And with the games they had in hand, I know there's still one game in hand, I think, that they have. But looking at it probably a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, it looked a lot more positive for Bows in terms of what they could do and getting that catching Sligo overs and getting that third place. But there you've come along as well, and they're a danger now. The form is not great in the last couple of games for Bows, although they have created chances, just haven't taken them. And whether it's a little bit of tiredness as well after obviously the European run, and they haven't played a lot of Friday, Monday games, which is difficult as well for them. So yeah, listen, the longer they go in the form that they're in, you can't see them getting that third place, and their only hope will be through the cup. But yeah, the Longford game is a must win for them, and to get motoring again. So there's still a good few games left, and they're still in with a shout, but they need to start picking up the points now.
What about Shamrock Rovers? They're at home to Derry at 8:00 this evening. Next season, that might be a big game in the title race decider, but this season, I suppose you'd fancy Rovers, even though Derry have been in good form.
Yeah, Rovers have had a fantastic season. They're out in front. They're going to comfortably win the title, it looks. But Derry again, I've really been impressed with them. I watched them against Bows there recently, and fantastic side. Play great football, real energy in the team, and I wouldn't be surprised if Derry did, catch them out. But yeah, Shamrock Rovers, you would expect them to win that, with the quality they have in the side and the squad that they have. So you would be edging towards Rovers on that.
Sligo Rovers, Waterford, it's a hard one to call. Sligo at home, but Waterford in great form. Yeah,
obviously since Mark Burton's come in, it's been unbelievable. I think I was there when his first games at home when Bows played them in Dalymount, and Bows beat them that day. But ever since then, I think they went on a great run. Only dropped or lost a couple of games in his time there. So yeah, that one you couldn't call that. Sligo's form is probably up and down of recent times, so it is difficult to call. That one you could see that being a draw as well. But again, Waterford want to keep climbing up that table if they can and stay away from that relegation playoff. And Sligo obviously looking to hold on to that third spot.
And St. Pat's go to draw. They lost last week, so whatever chance they had of winning the league is gone. I think even if they won last week, Rovers were probably still going to see it out anyway. But it's important for them to bounce back in this game, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And like Stevie, will obviously be building for next year, and they'll want to finish in that second position where they've been for the majority of the season. And he'll be using that to attract players and, keep the good vibes going internally in the group there as well. So it is important for them. Again, at a couple of iffy results, they start the season on fire, and it'd be great obviously for them. I think success will be staying in the league, but where they are now, they'll want to just try kick on it and get Europe as possible. It's probably out of their sight maybe now at the moment. But yeah, you'd fancy Pats to win that one again.
And in the first division, and I'm not going to ask you for a detailed preview of this game because I appreciate you might not have seen a whole pile of first division football, but Shelbourne, if they beat Treaty United, are going to go back up. As a Bowls man, as someone who's played for Bowls, as I presume a Bowls fan, is that a good thing? Would that be a good thing to have one of your nearest neighbours back up in the Premier Division? Do you like having the rivals close and having those games against them? Because, fans, they get that bit more up for those kind of derby matches, don't they?
Yeah, they're great games, and it is, as much as the fans love slagging each other and having the crack when one is in the first division, and then, Bowls obviously been in the Premier Division for such a long time now, with Chelsea struggling. But it's from a player's point of view, you love those games. You love the atmosphere in those games and playing in them. So it'd be great for them. I'm also, Ian Morris is a very good friend of mine as well. So it'll be fantastic for him to have 2 promotions in 3 years, on his CV for such a young manager. So it's a funny one because it's been a little bit quiet maybe there, and it's like it's expected that Chelsea are going to get promoted, and maybe that's the way it should be. But haven't heard as much around them what they've done. They've barely lost a game or two this year, I think, all in all. So it's been a fantastic season for them, and it'd be great to have them back in the Premier Division again.
And funnily enough, I was at maybe their first 2 or 3 games, and they weren't amazing by their own admission, but it's come together and they've done well. By the way, are you and Ian on the same moisturiser? Because you both look about 20. How is that possible? I thought management was supposed to age guys, not make them look younger.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Myself and Morrow, we've always been compared in looks to each other. So I don't know which one of us are happier with that. But maybe we are. I'm not sure.
Listen, you're both handsome men. You should both be complimented by Shane Supple. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the extratime.com Friday podcast.
No problem. Thanks, Oisin.
This is the extratime.com Friday podcast. It's a huge weekend in the SSE Electricity Women's National League. Shelbourne taking on DLR Waves on Saturday. And I think, Jess Gargan of Shelbourne, it's fair to say this falls into the must-win category for Shells, doesn't it?
Absolutely, Oisin. There's no question about it. It's a must-win game, as you said, and I think both teams will definitely be up for it. So we're excited to get going. It's been a few weeks since we played, so we're definitely raring to go.
We'll talk about this game and the league table ramifications of it in a moment, but I want to talk to you first about yourself. You were in America on a soccer scholarship for a while. What was that like? What was what brought you over there? What kind of tempted you to make that move?
Yeah, well, I guess I was in Ireland. Obviously, I was playing for Shells, and then I played for Peamount just before I left. And I'd been in contact with a few agents, which helped you go over to America and make that move. And the more I kind of got talking to people, I guess, about it, it made me think that I really wanted to go. In terms of, I'm very academic, and I love the college aspect of it. But like that, equally, if not more, at that stage of my life, football was my biggest priority. Along with getting an education. So when I heard you could do both and at a very high level, and in America they take the soccer very seriously, so when I realised I could do both, it was kind of a no-brainer. And I talked to people like Sarah Lawler, who went to my college, and a few other girls, so kind of got advice off people who went over, and then I just said I'd try it, and if I didn't like it, I could come back. And it happened to be that I absolutely loved it.
I hate using the term women's soccer or women's sport, because to me sport is sport, but I use it for this just to differentiate that in America, soccer among women or women's soccer is a lot bigger than men's soccer. So a soccer scholarship in women's soccer, it is a big deal to play in America because the standard is just so high.
Yeah, it's massive. And yeah, as you say, the sport itself, they just put a lot of time into it and, resources into it from a younger age, like their high schools, and they take it very seriously and they're brought up in a manner it's important, as you say. So yeah, it's the structure is a lot better than over there in terms of bringing girls up from a young age than it is over here. So yeah, kind of you can see, I mean, the US women's national team, they speak for itself. Like,
and did you kind of notice the improvement in you? Like, could you point to a couple of things and say, I'm now better at X, Y, and Z because I did my stint in America?
Yeah, definitely. I think a big thing for me going over was the league I was in, the fitness side of things. Like, I was always pretty fit before I went over, but the physical side was definitely a lot more prominent over there. Like, technically, I think, America, the league I was in, technically it was a step up, but not too much of a step up. But in terms of the physicality and the fitness, it was night and day, the difference. But on top of that, you're going from training 2-3 times a week over here to literally training every day and, for a good few hours a day. So the physicality thing for me was massive. But then on top of it all, I enjoyed it, which was big for me. Like, I think sometimes you can get ahead of yourself when you're in the national team and whatnot. You're kind of always thinking ahead, what's next and what goal do I need to reach next. But I think when I went to the States, I really just enjoyed the moment, which was massive for me. So yeah, it was all around just a really good experience.
And did you bring that attitude to training back with you? I know you're in a full-time job now, but are you still training every day, and even the days that you're not out on the pitch with your teammates training or playing, are you still doing stuff in the gym, doing stretches, whatever? Are you kind of still living that professional lifestyle, even though you're not technically speaking a professional footballer, but you effectively are?
Yeah, to the best that I can. As you say, I am working full time, but so we train 3 nights a week with Shells, and then I'll normally do another day in the gym. So 4 days a week, yeah. And then at the weekend, you obviously have a game, and then you do a recovery session the next day. So definitely, probably 6 days out of 7, I'm doing something. But in America, it's obviously that bit more. You're in with the team every day, so it was a massive difference. But I definitely brought it home with me. Just the structure and the routine, I think, I got in the habit of it. So I knew different. I did it for 4 years. So you kind of just, people can say, oh, I don't have time, but you kind of make time for what what really is important. And for myself, it was definitely tough coming home and starting to work and trying to have to fit it all in. But you get a happy medium after a while.
And it strikes me as well that when you go to college in America on a scholarship, you kind of accept at some point I'll be coming back and at some point I'll be entering the real world. But you know that. So it's not like you're seeing yourself as letting yourself down by coming back. You're actually better prepared. The fact that you got through it is a testament to you. You nearly come back on a positive rather than a negative. Whereas we've seen it before with players coming back into the League of Ireland who've maybe gone to England to a club and it hasn't worked out. They're coming back on a downer and they nearly have to get over that. Whereas it's nearly the opposite when you come back from America on a soccer scholarship. Would I be correct in saying that? Yeah,
that's actually a really good point and a way of looking at it. That exactly the first day you go over, you're going over for 4 years. Like, you can't play college football beyond that. So I always knew that was the goal I'd set myself. But in saying that, a lot of girls actually, now not from Ireland as much, but a few girls that I went to college with from England and a few other countries, you can stay over there. And it was something I thought about. I could have done my master's and kind of became a coach over there. But that was never, it was an option, but I never really thought too deeply into it for the reason that I wasn't going to be playing football if I stayed. My goal was always to come back into the National League. And that was the one thing for me when I was leaving, was that I always knew the National League was going to be here in Ireland. So I didn't mind leaving because I knew I could come back. Definitely was a positive for me coming back, and I really enjoyed coming back and into the Shell setup. I really enjoyed my first season back, actually. So yeah, it is a good way of putting it, because you say you come home from England and it can be a disappointment, but at the same time, it's a testament to the girls that go over and do try. It obviously is tough. It's a big step up, but definitely 2 different scenarios there.
And I guess as well, when young players go over, I mean, I'm a Cork City fan and I would have seen a lot of Ebelano this year, and she's phenomenal. But she's gone to America now, and she's not the only one, but she's a good example. But we know that we could get her back in 4 years. And when we get her back, be it Cork City or some other club in the league, but either way, Ireland, we're kind of getting a better player. We're nearly even getting a more mature player as well, because as well as getting older in years, she'll have that education, and I think travel broadens the mind and all that. So it's a long-term investment for us to let you go. Does that make sense?
No, 100%, you're right. I just say, yeah, they're going to come back, and you're right. You grow so much over in America. Not only, you improve as a footballer, but also just as a person. You're leaving home at 18. I was definitely a home bird, and it killed me to leave, to be honest. But I grew up so much, like, off the pitch, just in life in general. You build up confidence. You have to go out of your way to talk to people, to get to know people. So I think all around, normally the people that go over are coming back, better people, more mature, and just ready for life, really. Like, going from secondary school to in the big bad world, or going to college, like, it's a big adjustment. So I think if you pick the right college, you can only benefit from it, but there is a bit of research to be done before you just go over as well.
Yeah, well, making that decision and making that leap is such a big deal in any young person's life. I can only imagine what it's like and how brave you have to be to do it. So well done to you. And this weekend, as we were saying, you're up against DLR Waves. It's a big game for so many reasons. One of them is the fact that it's the first normal league game, as we put it, on terrestrial TV. It'll be live on TG Car. How big a deal is that for the players? How big a deal is that for the league? Or is it something that you're actually trying to set aside because to you guys, it's just another game that you need to win?
You're right. It is just another game we need to win. But to be honest, it's massive. We're all actually really happy that it is on TV, and they're giving us a bit of recognition. Like, fair play to TG Car for doing it. And it's good for all our family members. Our grandparents who may not get to the games, and people you work with, your friends. It's taking a step in the right direction. So we are all really happy that it's there. I think everyone in the league, even people sharing it on social media, it's given a bit of a hype to the game as well. Yeah.
Now let's talk about the game itself. Must win against DLR Waves. It was all going so well until a couple of weeks ago when you were beaten and beaten well by Peamount. It was one of those aberrations that if you played the next day, you might well beat Peamount. But have you fixated on that game since, or have you looked at it and let it go? What way do you reflect on that now?
It was a tough game. Like, it's one that's hard to take as a player. As you said, like, between us and Peamount, it comes down to the day. Like, the last game we played them, it was a tight game, but I think we dominated the game for most part. And then obviously they go out and beat us 5-0. And to be honest, they deserved every minute of that game. They were 2 gears ahead of us for the whole game. After the game, like, you need to take a step back and have a look at it. I watched it back myself, and you have to learn from these games. We had a bit of time off after that, so it was frustrating because after a loss like that, you just want to go out and, get another win under your belt, get going again. But we had a lot of time to think about that game. But yeah, we just have to move on. As you say, learn from it, fix certain things, change a few things up and bring them into the game against DLR. I think, like, you can't go around feeling sorry for yourselves either. So we have to just look forward now. And as you say, win every game that we play from now on and give ourselves the best shot anyway. Is
it frustrating that while you can still win the league, it's not in your hands? If Peamount keep winning, they'll win the league.
Yeah, definitely.
And Wexford Youths, by the way, in it as well. I should really be mentioning them. They're up against Galway tomorrow evening.
Yeah, both teams are in it, and yeah, it's definitely frustrating that it's in Peamount's hands, and it's kind of hard to swallow, but at the same time, as I say, you can't dwell on it too much. Like, we had our chance, and as I said, Peamount were the better team on the day, so we have to deal with it now and just focus on ourselves and the next few games. And you're right, yeah, Wexford are definitely still in it as well. They've been on form recently, so could be an interesting rest of the season as well.
Now, if I was to spin the positive, and I've worked in PR, so I'm good at spinning the positive, I would say that Peamount have to lead from the front, so that puts the pressure on them, but it kind of takes it off you. Is that?
Yeah.
Do you think a relevant point is there a little bit of pressure off you? And can that be a good thing?
I think it can be a good thing for certain people, yeah. But for ourselves, like, we expect a lot of ourselves. So I guess in terms of everyone looking in, yeah, the pressure might be on Peamount, but we need to hold ourselves accountable and just, pressure. We put pressure on ourselves in terms of we want to do the best, and we know we can. So we need to make sure we go out there and do it.
And the season is still very much alive, because regardless of what happens in the league, you're in a cup semi-final next weekend. Yeah,
exactly. We play Galway, another tough game. There's not actually, a lot of the games these days are tough, and the last time we played Galway, it was a close game too. So that's a big one we're focused on. Obviously, it would be great to get to the final and go on and win it. I've never won it myself, so it would be massive, and it's something we're definitely hoping to do.
And just before I let you go, you obviously have played for Ireland, and it's something you want to do an awful lot more. Is that something you're thinking about every game you play, or do you just have to try and do as well as you can for Shells and hope that kind of looks after itself?
Yeah, it's something I'm definitely. It's my goal every day, to be honest. I think when I first got dropped around, 2 years ago, all I could think about was getting back on the team, and I think I thought about it too much. Nowadays, the goal is still there. Obviously, I'm working hard on and off the pitch every day, but like I said, I'm focused on doing my best for Shells, and if I do my best for Shells and the management like what they see, then that's all well and good. But you just have to focus on what I'm on at the minute, which is playing for Shells, and I'm really enjoying playing for Shells. So if I do my best and I was to get a call up, that'd be another dream come true. But yeah, I guess just focus on doing my best every week and seeing where that takes me.
Jess, really appreciate your time, really appreciate your honesty. It's great to chat to you. Shelbourne have a big game this weekend. It's Saturday at 2:00. They're up against the DLR Waves. It is live on TG Car, and of course for the rest of the season you can follow Shells on LOI TV and you can watch that for free. I've been lucky enough to commentate on a few of your games actually, and they're always very entertaining. You play a lovely brand of football, and that must be something that you really enjoy, the fact that Noel King trusts you to go out and actually play ball.
Massively. That's a very good point. I genuinely love it. I could go up and ask Noel a question on certain things to do, and he gives you he'll give you advice, but he'll also give you the freedom. He'll tell you, you're on the pitch, you know what to do, and the style of football we play is really good. Even training every week, you're coming up against, players like Noel, Jess, really technical players who test you. But it's really good to be a part of, I must say.
Okay, well, it could be a big weekend for Shelbourne, the men's team, hoping to seal promotion to the First Division. We'll have a big feature on that, by the way, on Monday's podcast, because I'm actually at the game and we'll be broadcasting it live. We'll be doing audio commentary of it live. Obviously, you can watch it on LOI TV. And then the next day, Shelbourne in the Women's National League, looking to stay in the title race by beating DLR Waves. And that's live on TG Car. Jess Gargan, thank you very much.
Thanks a million, Oisin.
This is the extratime.com Friday podcast. And as promised last Monday and the Friday before, we said we'd talk a bit more about rugby in the coming weeks. The United Rugby Championship has started and we are making good on our promise. I'm joined by former Leinster, Connacht and Montpellier player and now Lansdowne head coach Mark McHugh. Mark, how are you?
Good, Oisin. Thank you very much. Great to be here and thanks for having me on.
Oh, well, thanks for the invite down to Lansdowne. It's an absolutely fantastic facility, both inside and out. Before we talk about this weekend's rugby, and I suppose the tweaks to the laws ahead of this season, Lansdowne are going to be back in the AIL this weekend. Obviously, like all other sports, there's been a long gap, there's been a long wait. I know you've had games, I know you've had a good Leinster League, but how good is it to be back? How good is it to be sitting in the club here again with a bit of buzz and activity?
Look, you know what? It's fantastic. It's been a long wait and it's been really difficult and really challenging. But yeah, no, look, it's great to be back. And the last couple of weekends when we have had a couple of Leinster League home games and the bar has been open and we have had supporters down and there's an absolutely brilliant buzz about the place, which, look, it's been fantastic. As I say, tough 18 or 20 months. And yeah, so look, we're delighted to be back on pitch and back playing. And we've had a really, really good pre-season. Loads of guys down and loads of numbers. And it's been really good and just can't wait to get stuck into AIL this weekend.
And speaking of the AIL, it's still a good pathway for players, isn't it? I mean, there's two pathways. One, the player who's decent and wants to play club rugby but maybe wants to concentrate on their career. But also, if there's a guy who wants to play professional rugby, then this is still a pathway. I mean, the more traditional one now, it's funny how quickly it's changed, but the general route is through the academy and then you sign for Connacht, Leinster, Munster, Ulster, whatever, or you go to England or you go to France and then maybe you come back. But now you can play your way into the provinces through the AIL. That pathway is still very much a thing, as you've seen with one of your players recently.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, we're certainly here in Lansdowne very passionate about creating that pathway for players. So a young player who doesn't maybe make a sub-academy or an academy or play Irish 20s or whatever it might be, often they can feel that, the professional game has passed them by. And look, we really believe that is absolutely not the case. And AIL is a fantastic and a really competitive league for some of these guys to really prove themselves and to put themselves in the shop window. And look, we have our most recent example, obviously, is Greg McGrath. Greg, who has played in Lansdowne for a number of years, played Irish 20s, yes, but played Lansdowne 20s. Has come up through and played Lansdowne first team, was part of our 2018 All Ireland League winning team. And off the back of performances for Lansdowne, he managed to pick up a short-term contract with Leinster last season, and has subsequently over the summer transitioned across to Connacht on a full-time contract over there. So, look, it is definitely a pathway. We, as you can see here, the facility we have is an environment where a player can come in and they can do their gym, they can have their coaching, and it's certainly I would argue it's second to none in terms of what you get in clubland around the country. It's interesting, we're obviously playing Cork Con this Saturday, the IL, and again, I think they'd be a great example of another club who, I suppose, believe in that pathway for players. So it's not just about getting to your academies; it's about proving it in, I suppose, as I like to call it, big boy rugby. So somebody who stands out playing AIL, it's definitely a pathway to, and it's definitely a shop window for guys to look into the program.
It's funny, for all the great things that Cork Con have done throughout their life, all I think of when you mention the name Cork Con is Ronan O'Gara with the SO jersey. The image is burnt into my mind. Let's talk about the United Rugby Championship. It's going into its second weekend this weekend. But what did you make of the opening weekend? There's a new format in rugby generally. There's been a tweak to the laws. What have you made of it all?
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, I think in some respects the status quo remains. Look, Leinster absolutely tonking a South African team in the Aviva. I think, look, that's great to watch, and the supporters back in the Aviva watching Leinster play what it can only be described as, look, a really exciting brand of rugby, and a lot of players really standing out and putting their hands up. A few guys maybe who didn't make lines over the summer, who felt they had maybe a point to prove. I think maybe what's disappointing is that you have a Bulls team that possibly didn't really show up. Curry Cup champions, without their South African internationals, but I think we would have expected more from them. So disappointing in that side, and you just hope that the championship is not the Pro 16 or Pro 14, whatever it was, just a renamed one of those where you don't have a really truly competitive, I suppose, league. But look, again, Leinster really good. I thought Ulster were really good in patches. Disappointed that John Cooney obviously came off with a hamstring injury. He's going to be gone for a little while. I think he is absolutely key to them being successful. But obviously, look, knowing Dan McFarland and knowing how good a coach he is, I'm sure he'll have a few tricks up his sleeve. And I know they're going to go well. Whether they'll stay the course or not, look, time will tell. And then look, Munster, obviously, Simon Zebo back scoring a couple of tries. The crowd down there loving it. Look, very, very interesting. And I think I think they're going to be a really interesting team. They've got they've got a couple of young players who've come through their academy over the last number of years. Maybe now they're coming into possibly what you might consider their prime. I think they're going to be really, really good this year.
What do you like about Munster? They themselves, by the way, are talking themselves up. I mean, players after the win last weekend said, look, we need to deliver. We need to win a trophy. What do you like about them?
Well, I like the fact that they're saying things like that. I think that
Can they back that up?
Well, look, only time will tell. I think they can this year. Yeah, I didn't see a huge amount of their game last week, but what the bits I did see, I was impressed with. And I think they've always got a really strong, I suppose, set piece, and that's core to their kind of the culture down there, of course. But I just, I think they move the ball around quite well, and I just think they put away a Sharks team, I think, last week that probably the scoreline maybe flattered them a wee bit, but put 42 points on the board. I mean, that's pretty good going, to be fair.
Yeah. Looking ahead to this weekend, I think it's kind of nearly pointless going game to game and just looking at the possible results, because I think we would expect the Irish teams to win this weekend. So what would they be looking for themselves in the second weekend of this competition? Where will they be looking to evolve? Where will they be looking to improve?
Where they'll be looking to improve, I would imagine probably across the board. It's an interesting one. Look, I think that these guys have been training hard all summer, and it's, you come into the first weekend of a new championship like that, and obviously you want to lay down a marker, which I guess a lot of them did. I think from a Leinster point of view, look, more of the same, I would say, to be honest with you. Some really, really good attacking play. I think in Dragons is it this weekend. I would expect them to win really, really well. And I think that they will look. Dragons have, I suppose, over the last couple of years been probably the weakest Welsh region, the most underfunded, a la, I suppose, Connacht back in the early 2000s and before. But, they will look to go and implement their game plan to, I suppose, really, focus on the process. Let the scoreboard kind of take care of itself. Yeah, they should win comfortably, and if they don't, then there'll be a bigger investigation after the fact. But I would expect they'll look to do their basics really, really well. Good, strong set piece. And yeah, I suppose look to play out of the tackle, offload, which I think they did probably quite well last weekend. And score plenty of tries, which is what people want to see.
I saw a lot of talk about Andrew Porter and his switch to the other side of the front row in the lead into last week. Can you tell us as a coach how big a deal that actually is and what maybe the thinking is behind it regards Porter?
Well, I'd love to tell you that I'm a technically proficient front row forward coach, but I'd be lying to you. No, look, listen, from what I understand, they're two very, very different positions and they are quite a different skill set. Look, he's obviously played there historically, I suppose, and then switched across and played tight head. And look, he's pretty darn good at both of them by all accounts. I don't know. I wonder, is it something that he's thought, that he's kind of talked to the coaches about? Look, obviously Tyke Furlong is ahead of him and will, well, I would imagine remain ahead of him. And he's maybe looked at this thing and, well, how do I get myself more game time? How do I get playing 80 minutes every week? Maybe not 8, but how do I get myself on the starting 15 every week? How do I play Six Nations? How do I play, World Cup? How do I make sure that this next World Cup cycle coming up, make sure I'm a massive part of that? And maybe he's thought, this is an opportunity. I don't know, but it's certainly, for somebody who would never have played, let's say, both sides, it would be a really difficult transition. Andrew has obviously played both sides now, and I think that while he has learned the technicalities, obviously, of tight head and is internationally proficient on that side, I do believe that he'll be really good at going the other side. And again, look, it's something then that is another string to his bow, but it's also from an Irish point of view and from a Leinster point of view, absolutely as well. It just creates another option, another option for at scrum time. So very, very interesting to see how that goes.
Look, as the weeks go on, we might chat about the team's performances and look a bit more deeply into that. I think at this stage of the season, we probably don't want to get too obsessed with that. But one thing I do want to ask you about is the change in laws, or the tweaks in some laws, the 50-22, and just, I suppose, to try and give a very rudimentary explanation that if you kick the ball from inside your own half and it bounces in the 22 and goes into touch, you get the possession at the line out. Now, that's a big change. Do you like that? Is that a good thing?
Do I like it? It's an interesting one. Yeah,
Do you think about this in two ways? Are you thinking about this firstly as a coach? Do you like it as a coach? And then secondly, as just a general rugby fan watching a game, is that how your mind is kind of working with it?
A little bit, yeah. I suppose I would think, God, if I was playing, what would I do? I would love it if I was playing. I mean, kicking was probably one of the stronger aspects of my game, and so I would have loved it. As a coach, yeah, it's certainly something you got to think about. We haven't focused a huge amount on it, I'll be honest with you, just because we've had loads of other things we need to work on, and it's probably a small enough part of the game. It is something that we, I suppose, or myself and my backs coach Damien McHugh have spoken to our kickers and our halfbacks about, and it is something that we have looked to exploit in a couple of games with good success, to be fair. From a defensive point of view, look, yeah, it's interesting. I do think if you're a spectator looking, it's going to possibly create different opportunities, and I don't mind it. I like it. I think it's something different that players and coaches are going to have to think about. Could potentially create more space, which I guess is the reason for it. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's good. I like tweaks like that just to see if it works, and I think it'll be good.
And the other one, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, basically it used to be a case that if you got over the try line and were held up, it was a 5-metre scrum to the attacking team. Whereas now it's a drop to the defending team, but you are essentially kicking it back to the attacking team. Do you like that as a law tweak?
This is an interesting one. No, I don't. I'll be honest. because we've been held up about 5 or 6 times in our last 2 or 3 games, and I would have loved.
Try and take yourself out of this if you. Well, it obviously, by the way, hasn't gone too badly for you in those games because you've won them. But try if you can take your own personal experience out of it.
I think. I don't mind it for certain situations. I don't like it for being held up over the line. Personally, I think you're penalising the attacking team too much in that respect, and giving too much of an advantage to the defending team, who can then kick the ball 50 metres down the pitch when, really only by the grace of God did they not concede a try. So that bit of it I don't like. There are other aspects to it. Maybe look at knock-ons if we kick the ball. If you kick the ball in goal and touchdown, it's a goal line dropout rather than 22 and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm not convinced of it, I must admit. I think it's certainly created a little confusion early doors about when it is a goal line dropout and when it isn't. Yeah. Players aren't entirely sure. Referees aren't entirely sure. We certainly had one instance where a referee wasn't sure and gave the incorrect decision. But I think that's going to happen with all of these last weeks, to be fair. But no, not one I'm a fan of.
Okay. Well, look, Mark, we'll catch up with you again throughout the season to talk about the big games as they happen, to look back on games that have been played, to talk about Lansdowne and how you're doing. I'm going to let you go now because you have to go off and train these guys. Please tell me, by the way, that the lads in the gym that I passed down there were like under 18s, because they look bulk, but they look like babies.
They're under 20s, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're under 20s, yeah.
I knew I was old. I didn't think I was that old.
No, our first team yet are just coming in the gate now.
Okay, Mark McHugh, thank you.
Thanks, Oisin. Thanks, Billy.
Well, that's it for the extratime.com Friday podcast. Remember, you can talk to us via Twitter at Extratime News, or you can get me on at Oisin Langan on Monday. We'll look back on all of the weekend's action, including the Premier League clash of Manchester City and Liverpool, as well as everything of importance in the SSE Airtricity League. You can follow all the games and what's happening and, get all the reaction to them through extratime.com across the weekend. The Shelbourne match against Treaty United in the First Division tonight is live on extratime.com. We've got audio commentary of that game. It's a huge one because, well, as you know by now, if Shells win, they will go up. We'll also have the best of the action from the GA Club Championship World from across the weekend on Monday when we return. Until we're back, take care of yourself and have a good weekend.